Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now, here's your host, Roxanne Derhodge.
Hi everyone, it's Roxanne Derhodge. Thanks for tuning in again today. Today I have a colleague, Tyler Hayden, and Tyler is a pretty interesting guy. He's pretty, I would say, funny. Can you tell? Well, for those that can't see him, he's kind of poking around in the camera, and Tyler does some amazing things. You were starting the speaking field when you were like, what, 7 or something? Is that it, Tyler?
Yeah, I finished just out of university. Yeah, so pretty much. I was Doogie Howser.
Not like the rest of us that had jobs before we got into speaking. Himself and one other colleague started right out the gate, and they were quite young. So obviously he has multiple designations, of which one of the ones that I think is of note of worth is the CSP, which is an international designation for speaking, and something that he has, and we have a fair amount of them in Canada, which is amazing with our Canadian Speakers Association. So Tyler, thank you for coming in. Tyler is a guy that's always on a plane or a train or, somewhere other than home. So thanks for taking the time to hang out with us today.
Absolutely, Roxanne. I appreciate the invitation. It's great to be in my studio and hanging out with your people who love you so much, and I know exactly why, because you're absolutely amazing. So thank you for the invitation, and folks out in internet land, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here. Like Roxanne said, I've been doing this for 28 years. I'm 49 years old, written 28 books. I've traveled internationally talking to groups from Michelin and the YPO to, the local 4-H group here in Nova Scotia. I love to be able to share, connect, and help people grow. My business has been, and most of my writings have been in workplace culture, which I think would be of interest to folks on your list. As well as team building. So yeah, I curate a little thing called Team Building School. It's a little beta LMS school that we're building online, where we're looking to share some ways of how to connect and build more engaged teams. That's what it's all about.
Let's talk about what got you, you're talking in your 20s, like you got in to speaking. Did you go to school was there a speaking school back then that you
I wish, because the only thing that I had that was remotely speaking school was getting kicked out of class from about grade 3 until actually 4th year university. Got kicked out of class for talking too much and cracking jokes. But yeah, no, I went to Acadia University. I have a degree, bachelor's degree in outdoor and environmental education. So it was a really cool degree because it was a combination of human performance. So we studied recreation, leisure behaviors, kind of human performance stuff. Then we also did a combined degree. The other 1/3 of it was all business management. So we took OD, OT, finance, all that kind of stuff, which really helps in the business today. And then the core part that I did a major in outdoor and environmental ed. So I went rock climbing, hiking, canoeing, did adventure education, and team building. So that's how I got started. And I actually spent a lot of time doing that, even in high school and university as a consultant. I don't really count that time as my business time, but started what is now the largest student-run student leadership association in North America, and spent a lot of times helping to grow kind of the student leadership movement for the first part of my career until I got old. I had a young person tell me I was old when I turned 30. So a speaker colleague told me that if you're starting to get old, get out of the gymnasium. So I became the cool young face in the corporate world, and started at about 31 years old, working full time, doing keynotes and team design and consulting. So yeah, that's kind of been my path in a nutshell.
So let's dive right into it. So, sure. I talk about connection in relationships and how leaders need to connect. So let's just jump right in. And I often think that leaders are well-intentioned sometimes, right? But they're so tactically driven, and they oftentimes don't stop to have those little pockets of fun, I would say, in order to kind of engage people. So tell us a little bit about what the core of your work is with teams and leaders, in reference to engagement.
Sure. So well, I'll show you something. I put together a couple of slides that I thought might be of interest. So let's hop inside. Team engagement is so important in today's day and age. We're looking at things like how do we create higher sales, higher profitability, productivity, less shrinkage. I'm not really sure what that is, but we'll just call it shrinkage. Fewer defects, all those things that help to drive the bottom line, and make sure that our teams want to be part of it. The core of my work is all around team learning and building a model that helps businesses and individuals to be able to make sure that they're meeting in a place that's relevant. So the context of what we do as a team is relevant context, and we've got a purpose, and it matters towards what we're doing in the future. Too often, team building got kind of the bad rap where they were saying, let's just go have some fun, let's go to this camp, let's play these games, it's all kumbaya. When actually team building is a leverage point that can really move that engagement forward, move the leadership forward, and it comes down to like trust and communication and engagement and doing it in a challenging and unique way. So as a team designer and as a leader, we want to engage our teams in one of three ways. I call them the 3 Fs. It's either fun, fast forward, or fix. And what we find is that when we're working with a team and we're going to do something with them, our team needs to be fixed in a way. Maybe there's a conflict happening. So what we want to do is we want to bring in a professional, mediator or facilitator to go through that kind of stuff. That's beyond what we're going to talk about today. Fun is typically what we've been doing team building for, where we get together for a beer, we go out and do an escape room together. We do something like that. Then there's the fast forward stuff. Now, this is where the magic is. If we can take our time that we're doing training and development, or we're away on a retreat, and we can integrate team building into training, that's the magic secret sauce. So I did a project with a group that does call center stuff, and the call centers, what they were looking to do was, it's a 24/7 project is what they do in their business. And they were trying to connect the people within the different shifts. So we came up with a tool where we embedded Easter eggs inside all the different client files. Because often when you call a call center, they actually manage like 20 or 30 different clients. So they have to have an understanding of the person who picks up people in a limousine versus the plumber versus the electrician versus the dry cleaner. So we hit all these Easter eggs and we set up a scavenger hunt inside their internal database. And we gamified it and we gave prizes and points and all that kind of stuff, so that between the shifts, they were all looking for these Easter eggs inside all of the client data. So they're fast forwarding in that they're learning new business skills, but on top of that, they're doing some of that cohesion, that engagement, that content-driven kind of, thing that's going to give them that stickiness to the business. Because that's what it's all about. It's about how do we create that stickiness as a leader so that people want to hang out, they want to stay around, and we're not out trying to hire new people all the time. So yeah, that's the 3 Fs for team building. So fun, fast forward, and fix. And the fast forward stuff, it's just magic. And if you do team building right, and you do it at regular intervals inside of your regular business activity, particularly those times when you're getting together to teach something new or work on a skill, those can be really great times to create that cohesion.
So this was digital, obviously, right? The Easter eggs were digital. So
totally,
that's interesting, right? So again, if you think about kind of with obviously the pandemic, everybody was thinking virtually.
Yeah.
But this was something that you were doing even previous to that with your teams.
Yeah, COVID was funny because I had already been speaking and training on how to build what was called a co-located workforce. So that was kind of one of the original terms, that the geographically dispersed workforce. We were doing team building stuff with people all around the world, and trying to figure out how to do it over the phone using computer systems. Looking at even just the disparity between what people had for tools at their access, whether it's a camera. I mean, I'm working with a 4K camera right now. Somebody who might be logging in, they might be, not even on a 1080p, right? They're, the disparity of what technology people have back in the day was, a 486 versus, styled computer versus, something that might be like an iMac or something like that. So being able to connect people was challenging pre-COVID. And that was one of the benefits of COVID, at least in my business, was things leveled out, and the access to technology, the access to the tools that we needed to connect people changed and adapt. And so that's been kind of the last couple of years. I've been building the team building school, where I'm trying to take all this stuff that I had inside my hard drive and download it into the school so that people can download them and use these tools in their space with their teams.
So do you find that a lot of people maybe focus on one part of the three F's? Like maybe they kind of have fun, right? Mm-hmm. And it's completely disconnected from kind of the fast forward or the fix. Do you find that typically kind of think, they think about, oh, we'll just do like a scavenger hunt once. Right. Oh, we'll have a potluck or do something like that. And that's separate from anything in reference to functionality of what their day-to-day function is. Is that what you find a lot of?
You're absolutely right, Roxanne. What happens is managers, they look and they say, okay, well, we have a budget that we can do a quarterly team event. And you'll see it on their agendas where it says team building. And it's team building happens. Team building is not scheduled. Team building is something that happens over time. It's like Richard Lavoie said. He talks about the poker chip theory. And what's interesting is when you're born, you've got this piggy bank, and everybody tells you, "Oh, you're beautiful, you're wonderful, you're so smart. Oh, look at you, you stood up. Oh, you peed in the potty. That's amazing." And people are constantly throwing these poker chips into your piggy bank. And then all of a sudden, people start going, "Oh, you're not very smart. Oh, you flunked math." Oh, and they say, you can't do a sit-up, a push-up, you can't run, blah, blah, blah. And they start pulling out all these poker chips. Our teams are no different. As a manager, what we want to do is we want to start putting poker chips on a regular basis into all of our team members. Team building is not something that happens in an instant, in an occasion. It happens progressively. In a bunch of instances, often you don't even know it's happening. It's those water cooler moments. It's those 5 minutes before the meeting starts. It's giving a reward that matters to the person. Instead of giving out a 5-year award and it's automatically a watch, you give somebody a whole new toll painting kit because you know that they love to paint and they love to do artwork. It shows that you care and are connected to them as a leader. That's how team building is done. That is how we do it in an incremental way, and we can plan for it. We can plan to add those poker chips in a logical way if we're conscious of it as the leader.
So clearly, it makes sense, and I mean, obviously, when you're building trust, you don't go from there is no trust to wow, there's trust, right?
Yeah.
So it's obviously, I would say, a living entity when you work with teams. So if someone's listening and they're thinking, I don't know about this thing, Mr. Tyler Hayden, like you're wanting me to do what with who? Like, first of all, I don't have the time, and the more time I give them, the more they want. And there's all my complainers on the team and nobody's going to play along. And, I'm going to probably have poison darts thrown at me, figuratively speaking, when I'm, leaving.
Hopefully.
So all those things, these are all reasons that a lot of managers say, right? Like, we're run off our feet, and give me the reasons. Like, I know you with that slide, you talked about all the benefits, but what are some of the reasons when you're talking to, say, to get buy-in, right? Obviously, you have to talk to a company. They're coming to you for a different reason, but then you have to go to the managers to be able to say, okay, by the way, I'm the person that's going to help you have people get along better and have fun at work. How do you kind of, from the person that's not really into it, kind of get them potentially thinking about it a bit differently?
So oftentimes it's a matter of dollars and cents. So for the bean counters, I go through stats like the US finds there's $40 billion, that's B with a billion, dollars worth of absenteeism every year as a result of disengagement. And let's not even talk about the number of presentism is. Motorola talks about how for every dollar it invests, it returns $30 back in training and development. So those are some of like the numbers you can throw around. But honestly, when I sit down, I sit down with managers and what we realize is that every time they've done team building, it's been done wrong. Right. And there's a lot of great models out there for team building. And we talk about, storming, norming, forming, perform, and we've heard all of those models. But what I've learned is that it's about team learning, not just about team building. So it's about how teams learn. And if you pause and think about school for a moment, there were courses that you took that you did really well in. For me, what was your favorite course, Roxanne? What was your favorite course in school? Geography. Okay, so you're a very naturalistic thinker. I bet you do really well with processes. I bet you care about culture. I bet you care about people. Those are things that are of interest to you. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely. And what happens is everybody has a kind of a way in which they like to learn. And we've heard about, there's kinesthetic learners or there's visual learners. We've heard about those things, right? There's actually 8. Well, there's more than 8, but Howard Gardner, a Harvard professor, he came up with 8 different learning modalities that help to frame how kids like to learn. Like, here, check them out. So, because I made a slide for that one too for you, Roxanne. We've got 8 different learning modalities. There's interpersonal, intrapersonal, linguistic, naturalistic, body kinesthetic, logical mathematical, visual spatial, and musical. And I fall into kinesthetic intelligence. And I love to do things. I love to work with my hands. I love to do that kind of stuff. I'm also linguistic. I've written 28 books and I love to crack jokes. Humor is my thing. But if you and I were doing team building activities, you would look for something differently than I would. And what team builders or team facilitators have been doing for years that's wrong is they've been coming in and saying, oh, we've got this amazing event. It is we're going to do an axe throwing competition. They're going to love it. We have great results with it. And they do it, but they do it with a group of people who might be maybe like early childhood educators, right? Wrong activity. Like, it's the wrong one because it doesn't align with the intelligences that it takes to succeed in that job as an early childhood educator. So I was doing a session in Florida, and one of the project managers was in the room, said, you know what, Tyler, team building is junk. I have a group of engineers. They hate it. They never want to do it. And she said, I don't know how to engage them. And I said, well, try the game of commonalities. Commonalities is an activity where all she had to do was set the engineers up in small groups and say, you have 2 minutes to come up with as many commonalities with the people in your small group as you can. They can't be things that we can see about you, like we all have hair, which some of them probably didn't. They were probably bald. But she said, you have to come up with many commonalities of stuff we can't see. Like, we've all traveled overseas. We all drive a pickup truck. We all have we have a Netflix account, whatever it is. And whoever can come up with the most number will be declared the winner. And whoever has the most obscure will get second place. They loved it. She wrote me a message the next day saying they loved it. And the reason they loved it is because they're mathematical, logical learners who are also linguistic. So they want to be able to measure what it is that they did. They want to know clearly who the winner and who the loser was. They wanted to be able to compete in a logical way. They could make that list. The rules were clear. Like, setting up the activity for them was the most important part, and aligning that activity to that style of learner. That's what I talked about in my book, The Business That Cared. And the multiple intelligences is the secret sauce. It is the magic that allows us to be able to reach people, because it's not team building, it's team learning. And when we take away that idea that we're building something, building that's sweaty. I mean, I've built houses and renovated like 200-year-old. How do you sweat, right? But when you're learning, you can engage, you can lean in, you can process, you could do all those things. That it's a lot easier for people to lean in and enjoy what it is that you're doing.
Well, I love that, because ultimately, right, like I think in business, we do the SWOT analysis, we look at the metrics, all that stuff. But what I love about what you're talking about is that you're actually looking at capabilities or abilities that attract people to certain things, right? So I'm a psychologist, right? So certain things, you're not going to give me any numbers, because I'm going to go, excuse me, right?
Yeah, you'd be like, time out, that doesn't matter.
Exactly. Right? But if you give me anything that's intuitive or problem solving or seeing the nuances embedded in something, I'm all in. Like I'm 150%. So what I hear you saying, which I love actually, is that when you go into an environment, then are you doing an assessment of the types of positions that people are doing for teams, or is it what if you have a cross-functional team then? That's the other thing that's interesting when you're doing team building as well.
Yeah, of course. So in the book we cover that, and we have a tool. So there's a tool we call it the MIQ fingerprint. So what we can do is we can do an MI test, so multiple intelligence test, MIQ, and we can figure out what is the general, what are your top 3 learning modalities? What are your top 3 learning intelligences? I'm a kinesthetic learner, I'm a visual learner, and I'm a linguistic learner. We take my 3, we do a scatter graph with everybody on the team and what their top 3 is. And what we'll find is that there's commonalities of a top 3. So while you might have a high musical intelligence, but nobody else does, well, in our team, we're not going to do anything with musical because it's only just one thing, but you do share linguistic with the team. So we want to make sure there's a linguistic part to the team building that we're doing. So we find that magic fingerprint that is very unique. And that's that Warren Bennis kind of stuff of what makes great groups, right? Where there's a synchronicity, there's that magic between people that Oppenheimer had, that Bill Clinton had, that in their teams, that we're able to figure out what the magic kind of formula is for reaching that team. Now, we don't always have the benefit of being able to use the tool to be able to find out about the team. I do programs for upwards of 8,000 people, so it's hard to do and calculate the data all at one time. But if we're doing an executive team that might be, say, 10 people, it's easy to implement. But what we can do is we can look at job functions. So Howard Gardner did a really good job of assessing where kids with those intelligences should go based on their modalities. So if you have a kinesthetic child, they might do well as a dancer, a police officer, a firefighter, a construction worker, stuff like that. So if I'm working with a group of firefighters, I know that whatever I'm going to do, it needs to be kinesthetic, right? Because they are doers. They are with their hands as part of their job roles. So we'll look at the roles and what's required to be successful in those roles and make some inferences of what types of team building we should provide. And then there's the cultural aspect.
Though, Tyler, like what amazing,
right?
Right, because if you think about it, and you're going in and you're going to do the thing like that everybody's done before, people are going to go, oh, do I have to show up at this thing, right? And do I have to participate? And what's he going to make me do that I don't want to do, right?
Yeah. So I was doing a thing for ExxonMobil, so a group of oil and gas people, and it was a customer service center within ExxonMobil, and one of the feedback pieces was, I can't believe that was 2.5 hours. I can't believe we did that for 2.5 hours. It's Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi talks about flow. You know flow. I'm sure you flow theory and how you kind of lose track of what it is that you're doing. In flow theory, Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi talks about how do we get to that optimal state of flow, and that's what good team building is all about. It's where our skill level matches our maximum challenge level. And what happens when people are in team building is they'll look at, the team builder will all of a sudden start to set up things that are either really boring, like low skills and, low challenge, and you'll have an apathetic team. Kids do that all the time in school, right? Or all of a sudden, you get dumped into this activity that's really highly challenging, low skill levels, and next thing you know, you're an anxious mess. Right. So being able to match what we want people to succeed at, we need to get an understanding of what their challenge level is and what their skill level is. And as soon as we can do that, we can get them into that flow state where they're like, oh my gosh, where did that time go? It's like a rock climber climbing up a pitch. All of a sudden they're at the top and they're like, where did the time go? Or you're driving down the road and we all have this high level of expertise, except when we're on the 401, we have this high level of expertise, and the challenge is just right. And all of a sudden we're at our destination and we don't remember the moments in between. That's flow. And that's what we attempt to do inside of team building. It doesn't work all the time. I mean, not an exact science, but I can't believe people haven't been doing this for years. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, Roxanne. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Like, I'm not a rocket scientist. I have a degree in recreation management. I did not graduate top of my class, but to me, it's simple, right? It's simple in that we're reaching to what moves people. It's like judo. Instead of stopping the punch, we move the punch beyond us. We're saying, okay, how do you want to get there? Okay, perfect. This is the route, right? As opposed to trying to stop you and move you over this way so that you're going the way I want you.
When I did a keto, I'm pretty small. And my instructor obviously was, he was a police officer, big guy. And when I learned my stuff, and then I did it with two big guys, and then seconds, of course, they'd be down. Then you'd think, right? The outcome was I took it because I wanted self-defense. But the fact is, you're so right, when you're in flow and you learn what is necessary to move you along, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I just took down 2 6'3" guys. That are triple my weight kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, it's amazing when you finally, like you said, figuring out the way to learn and what's the best way to get that person there. I think you're right. It's simple, but not easy, because you have to think a different way.
Right. Absolutely. And I also know now, as a 6'5", 240-pound man, I'm going to need to be really careful when I'm around you. That's what I've learned all of a sudden.
Watch it when I see it. Quebec City at the, I'm trying to brush out on my skills. Now let's talk about some of the realities of, C-suite, or people that are thinking and that could reach out to you, and I would love them to do that, or interested. Let's talk about, look, people have been through a lot. There's been, obviously we know what the economy is doing. There's been a lot of, downsizing, right sizing, blending, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of managers have not done, or senior teams haven't done well sometimes with how they lead.
Yeah. And
then they think, oh my God, I want to start doing this thing. I want to build trust. I want to build transparency. I want to start to do recognition. But you're coming in, and I'm sure you've dealt with environments like this, and you're like, oh boy, there's some reparative stuff that has to get done. How do you approach those kind of scenarios with senior teams?
Yeah. So if you're working in a senior team, and you know what, it's a challenging time. And I've been in the speaking business for, as I said, 28 years. I've seen the economic downturns already a couple times. And the leaders in the C-suite that I've seen really succeed are the ones that go back down to the basics. So they figure out what they need to do, how they need to communicate with their teams. I'm going to show you something else, because it's ironic. You're asking me a lot of questions that I have slides for. I'm not sure, because we did not plan this. We just said we're having a conversation, and I'm like, I think I know what Roxanne's going to want to hear about. So, and that's my job, I guess, as a consultant. So, what's really important is how do we take our team through what I call the team swell. So this is built off of a model that's inspired by that good educational paths have a beginning and a middle and end, just like a corporate cycle has a beginning, middle, and end. The adventure wave theory is about growing our teams in a progressive wave. The idea of flow theory, where challenge and skills and motivations matter. So when I work and coach C-suite people, what I really get them to focus on is let's look for the low-hanging fruit right away. Let's close that timeline of how we communicate and work with our teams. Let's not look at it as an annual basis. Let's not look at it a quarterly basis. Let's look at it a month or a week basis. And what can we do inside of the team swell? So in the beginning, how are we orienting people? How are we challenging them? How are we motivating them? How are we applying the skill sets that are required in order to be successful in any of the projects that they're doing? Because team building, as we said, can be fun, fast forward, or fix. So what are we doing every day? How can we gamify it? How can we make it interesting? How can we support them and motivate them, reward and recognize, do all of those things? And as we start to do a good job at that, the production effort starts to increase a little bit, and the engagement starts to increase a little bit. And what we need to then do is, when we realize that we're just starting to curve over top of that engagement and that production curve, is we need to celebrate what we've accomplished. Now, here's the trick, is when we celebrate what we've accomplished, we can head back into another swell stage where we orient what we're going to do next. It's like building blocks. It's like Lego. We're just going to keep building on top of one another. And it's done in small incremental ways. As we talked about at the beginning, it's about the little things that we do as a leader, setting up the right challenges, making sure that they're unique, building communication, trust, and collaboration in progressive levels, like Richard Lavoie with the poker chips. It's those things, making sure that the tasks and jobs that we're asking people to do are engaging for those individual learners inside of our workforce. You know, when we start to shift that paradigm of employees to learners, we start to see how we can utilize their skills that little bit differently, just that little bit differently.
So the counter side of that is, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that sometimes you're going to run into managers that don't have some skills. Yeah. To deliver what you're suggesting, right? Like they're not so good at engagement, or they're not so good at really dropping down into really their space to understand. Kind of stuff I talk about is dropping down into understanding where you're at when you're stressed. You know, when you have the deadlines and we're missing deadlines and people are needing something, you have to be able to meet individuals where they are. But that's ultimately starts with you as the manager, the leader, to be able to create the space for all these amazing things to happen.
Yes.
So as part of your training, are you kind of looking at the subset of skills with the managers to see if they can deliver these things?
Of course, it's the authenticity, and you might download that to somebody else within your team to manage the engagement-y kind of stuff. You know, it works the same for you. You're an employee as well, right? You're part of that team as well. And if you're not living your best skill set, then you're not going to engage your team in the way that you might want to engage them to their highest peak performance. So if you're looking at your skill set and what your learning modalities are, we'll start to use your learning modalities to connect with theirs. Where do you sit in the same spot? Like, we're all mathematical logicals. Okay, well, how am I going to, I'm going to engage my team through the numbers, right? So we're going to come up with a way of managing our success by looking at metrics, right? Kinesthetics, we're going to want to look at those same metrics, but I have to build a way of doing that. So every time somebody succeeds, they write what they succeeded on a coin and they glue it to the next coin. And the next thing you know, you're stacking up all these coins glued together. Right. Like, so we're coming up with ways of using your skill set. I always tell the leaders that I work with, you know, don't try to do what I do, because what I do is what I do. Right? And that's my skill set, right? Use what you have, use your special talents in order to engage folks, and do it in a way where you're engaging them where they're at. That's the key, right?
So it's like a two-sided coin to some degree. Like, if I internally know what kind of leader I am, and I'm phenomenal at certain things and I'm not so good at other things, and there's alignment too, right? So if I'm a lot like you, Tyler, I'm going to engage with you more because it's easier to flow with you. But if I'm diametrically opposed to you, I'll be like, oh boy, here he comes. I'm going to stay away from him. So it's really the same things that I talk about in my book, which is ROR, which is really getting that deep sense of who am I? How do I communicate? How am I transparent? How do I make decisions? And how do I like to be recognized does not mean that that's how everybody else needs to be recognized. And really starting from that point, then you're able to kind of, kind of create that radius of connection around you.
Yeah, right? I mean, think about so I think about the interpersonal versus the intrapersonal. The intrapersonal person likes to, sit in their cave. They like to, look at the cause and effect. They love to, they love to think deeply about why. Like they love to go and research the answer to the question why, and then they'll tell you the answer, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's correct because they've done the depth of reading. The interpersonal person is about collaborating with everybody. They want to be on stage. They want to ask questions. They want to present. They want all that kind of stuff. If you're given a reward to an interpersonal person, it's absolutely okay to stand them up in front of the group and say, hey, congratulations, you were absolutely amazing. Here's your award, hang a thing around their neck, big shiny medal. But if you do the same thing to an intrapersonal person, they're never going to do whatever you're rewarding them for ever again. Like it's over, like it's done. Right. So, and honor yourself with the same piece of wisdom that, be where you are and acknowledge where you are and connect with people where they are. That's what it's about.
And having been a manager in multiple roles, because some of us had jobs before we started to do this thing.
I've heard of these things. I don't really know what they are.
It's called JOBS. But, what I learned was that I was like, there's certain things that I was really, really good at. Like I said, but I had people honestly, I think sometimes they were planted on my teams and they were microscopic and they were like the engineers of the team. Right. And they would find every time I had missed something. But what they forced me to do was to get better at what they were needing for me to connect at. So I would pour through reports more, and I would look at my training analyses even more so that I could deliver in a way that allowed them to hear what they needed to hear based on the outcome that they were looking for. So it forces you, right?
And you know why it forced you? Because you are that naturalistic learner where you care about that community and that culture. And you were getting pushback from the culture saying, geez, Roxanne, you know what? We need it in this way. And you let us down in that way. And you didn't want to let that group down, and you didn't want to break the fabric up. So using, our tool of MIQ, your interpersonal skills where you really cared about the people, and your naturalistic skills where you cared about the process and that there was that community and all those pieces happening, you were willing to go that extra mile in order to help to make sure that can be done right.
Sometimes they made you look, they tripped you up. So then you're like,
totally.
I can't be on. It's like with the legal profession, and we're like, there's a statistical analysis error of 0.05, and I'm like, and then you're in the middle of a presentation, and then you're there is a statistical, but it's irrelevant, but they toppled you. So I think it's really what it did for me as a young manager, because I was in my 20s, is it really showed me, okay, well, I obviously don't naturally think like that, but I've got a subset of such different learners, and if I'm going to lead them, how is it that I'm going to effectively do that? And then somebody just go, well, that's too bad you think like that, and then of course you lost a third of your team. But as managers, obviously it's kind of figuring out what are my gifts, what are my blocks, and how do I enhance what I need to. Now, for people that are, I'm sure, going to love this because you're so engaging and funny, Tyler. Let's say there's leaders listening and they're like, boy, you know what? Geez, we've kind of done that thing we said we do the professional development days, and there's another one coming up, and I don't even know what to do because we're not getting engagement and things aren't getting better. And where can people reach out, or what are some of the things that they should start thinking about as they plan, because they've not been getting the outcomes that they're looking for?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can connect with me for sure. And guess what? There's a slide for that too. So here's a bunch of slides.
I love when people are prepared, Tyler. So this is all of it.
I appreciate that. You know what, here, you can go to my website, tylerhayden.com. You can go to teambuildingschool.com, or if you're scanning that QR code right now, then what you're going to find is that there's actually a link to the team building toolbox. So if you want to look at doing things a little bit different, I can come in for sure, and absolutely happy to do so. But you'll also find that working with the team building toolbox, there's a bunch of pre-made activities and tools and things that you can do straight away to help to engage your team. Like, for example, and we can play a game if you want to. I'll start.
Yeah.
I love playing games. Let's see if we can find the right screen. There it is. We've got a game called the Magic 2-Ball. And the Magic 2-Ball is awesome because what you end up doing is you end up coming in and you might remember another ball from pool that I can't talk about because it's different. But you shake it, and then all of a sudden there's a quick little question that comes up, like, what's your greatest passion? What's your greatest passion, Roxanne?
Scuba diving.
Scuba diving. Very cool. I love that. And then you just go back down to the 2 and you flip back over and you do another one, and randomly comes up with another question. So there's new ways of engaging and finding cool ways to connect with people. That's one of them. Another one, that's my little piece of paradise that you're seeing there. That's that's my cottage.
Where's the picture?
That is Kingsburg, Nova Scotia. It is just outside of Halifax on the South Shore. It's absolutely spectacular. We have another one which is called So You Want to Be 100 Air. Okay. And you might recognize that game too, where you might get a few more dollars than $100, but you can go through and you can play the same style of questions. And these are all templates that you can use in order to level up the kind of activities that you want to do with your team. So we've got some pre-made things that you can use. You can pick up, I've got a couple different books. We've got Virtually Engaged, if you're doing virtual engagement activities. This goes through some of the theories of things we talked about, as well as has a little bit of a Rolodex inside where you can check out some different activities that are simple and easy. They've got kind of a recipe of how to do it. We've got a tool inside the team building school that's a huge database that you can actually filter based on the types of intelligences and find reward recognition, debrief, energizers, team buildings. We're adding to that all the time. There's about 130 things in there right now. We're going to add some more. And then we've got the Business of Caring About People. It's got a bunch of other activities. So yeah, reach out. I mean, if you want to just chat and have some conversations, I'm happy to kind of give you some ideas and shoot me an email. So you can do that right off tylerhayden.com.
Amazing. I love it. And like you said, I like the fun, and that's what I'm taking away, fun and fast forward. And I love the fact that you can cue those together, because if I am having fun associated with learning something, and then I think of this in reference to vision and strategy, then all of a sudden I'm having fun and I'm already thinking about the business, and really I'm in it already. So I'm already learning something different while associating fun with doing something that impacts the business, which I think is fantastic.
And you want to know a funny thing, Roxanne? 80% of what you learn when you're having fun. 80%. So if you had a subject in school that you hated, like me in math, I hated it so much, I took it in summer school. Like, I hated it that much, right? I took it in the summertime. That's how much I hated it. But and I did poorly as a result. So, let's find a way. You're absolutely right. Let's make it fun. Let's make it exciting. Let's connect people in a professional way that matters to them.
Well, I can see how people want to hang out with you, because you're this has been amazing. So much fun. Tyler, thanks so much again for your time. For others, thanks for hanging out with me again. I just released my new book, ROR, Return on Relationships. If you want to know about where you are in reference to relationships, either at home or at work, just go to roxannedurhodge.com/quiz. You'll get a really nice mini quiz with some recommendations, and you can follow up with me if you're needing more. So again, Tyler, thanks so much. And for everyone, we'll check you next week, and look forward to hanging out with you again then. Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannederhage.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.